following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Outside the limit of our sight, feeding off us, perched on top of us from birth to death, are our owners.
Latest census numbers prove the United States has the biggest gap between rich and poor compared to all westernized countries today.
Our projections show that by the year 2025, not only America, but the entire planet will be under the protection and the dominion of this power alliance. The gains have been substantial, both for ourselves and for you, the human power elite.
There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets. It's a new morning in America. Fresh, vital. The old cynicism is gone. We have faith in our leaders. We're optimistic as to what becomes of it all.
We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
The real men of the world have to stand up and say,
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
And welcome aboard, everyone, to the first episode of the Flat Earth Files. I'm your host, George, coming to you from the Dover, Delaware area. Again, it's our first episode. Going to just try to give a brief overview of my thoughts on Flat Earth. And also, why am I doing a podcast specifically on Flat Earth? If you don't know, if you just happen to come across this podcast, maybe you're just researching Flat Earth. You've it's been a topic the last few years. It's gained some notoriety, with the advent of the internet and things of that nature. But I also have a truth podcast called The Fact Hunter that's been going for a couple of years. We have over 600,000 downloads, and we look at everything from JFK to the moon landings, you name it. And yes, we've done some presentations on Flat Earth, but there's something in the truth community that anytime you mention the Flat Earth, it is so incendiary. And it's really hard to believe, because when you think about everything that not just the United States government, but all the governments have lied about, to think that, they've told us that we live on a ball, that the people in Australia are standing upside down, and that the world revolves around the sun, whereas even the Bible states, God made earth and made everything around it. And we have a sky clock when you look up. Everything rotates around us. And this episode we're entitling Why the Lie? And anytime, if you've watched these videos on YouTube, that is the preeminent question. Anytime there's a YouTuber, or you hear a podcast, whether it's Crow 777 or David Weiss or Jeranism or any of these folks in the Flat Earth community, they're always asked, why the lie? Well, the fact of the matter is everything is based around, Satan rules the earth, and our lives are filled with temptation, and those who are in command here on earth want to lead us away from God. Look, you look at evolution, the theory of evolution, that was put in place to lead you away from God. The Bible is very specific how he made Adam and Eve in the beginning. Evolution, which is taught in your public schools, takes away from that. And so does the heliocentric model, which Copernicus came up with, was one of, the one that really pushed it forward. And we're going to present all these things in our future podcasts. We're going to talk about the firmament, Antarctica, Operation Dominic in the 50s, when they were trying to break through the firmament with nuclear missiles. Hillary's message breaking through the glass ceilings. All of this we're going to discuss in the coming podcasts. But if you have, and, if this is your first time coming across Flat Earth, actually taking the time to research it, the way I try to teach people is completely clear your mind of anything that you've ever been taught and just use your eyes and your perceptions to help mold your thoughts. Because there's some folks out there that are into scientism, and they will tell you the math figures and this, that, and the other thing, that the sun is 93 million miles away or the moon is 239,000 miles away. It's all hocus pocus, just like dinosaurs, just like the moon landing. It is all to take away from God and his creation. And in the coming podcasts, we'll be looking at the biblical aspects of it, and we'll be looking at just the proofs here on earth that debunk the marble, right? Here's a big thing for me. If you go to Google, yes, Google, not DuckDuckGo or Yandex, go to Google and put something in there. And if the narrative is against it, it's probably true. Okay. Again, this podcast is going to be solely for the Flat Earth. But I'm sure a lot of people were brought awake from the vaccines, right? And during this whole quote-unquote pandemic, if you tried to look up anything that was anti-vaccine, your things on Google is just going to discredit. And if you do the same thing on Google, you do the Flat Earth, it will be everything on the first page will go against Flat Earth. And even if you go to our friends at Wikipedia, right? I'm just going to read this straight from Wikipedia. And it says the Flat Earth model is an archaic and scientifically disproven conception of the Earth's shape as a plane or disk. Now, you'll hear two presidents, I have some audio I'm going to play for you in a moment, how George H.W. Bush, one of the most evil men to have ever walked the earth, and Barack Obama make fun of flat earthers. And subtly through the decades, with the help of television and Hollywood, they have brainwashed generations of people to think that we live on a ball that spins, and that in itself should disprove, satellites and airplanes should disprove that we live on a ball. But we've become so programmed between our public education system that has failed us miserably, because, again, the federal government has no business being in our education. And again, I'm not going to go into that stuff too much, the other stuff, but if you do, go to the Fact Hunter. It's available on all podcast distributors. It's a lie. Between Hollywood, if you look at any movie within the last 60, 70 years, there is a globe at some portion of the movie. One of the most, brainwashing movies that was ever made was Contagion. Literally every minute there was something in there, whether it was hidden messages, hidden numbers, the number 33, just on and on and on. But going back in time through movies, every movie has a globe in it. At some portion, it's very subtle. Maybe they're walking through a library, they're in somebody's office. There is a globe in almost every single movie, and it started way back even in the movies in Hollywood, whatever that motion picture company is, at Universal, I think, with the globe spinning. And it's amazing that we can sit here and have a very courteous conversation about all the other conspiracies in the world. It just really trips me out that some truthers out there, very famous ones that have written books about it, know that the moon landing was a complete hoax. And that is something we will do many podcasts on. We'll expose NASA for their lies. I will put links in the show descriptions showing in their own videos and pictures that they're staged. There's a 2012 picture supposedly of Mars. There's a rat in the picture. Just on and on and on. They are caught in their lies. But this episode, again, is why the lie. And it is very simple. They want to control us, and they want to lead us away from the Creator. They can play the card. How many times have you heard, an asteroid is on trajectory to hit the Earth? And then literally a couple months ago, you heard of the thing that landed on the asteroid and it blew it up. It's just all hocus pocus. It is all lies. Number one, to keep you in fear. If you still watch the news, if you're new to the truth community, the very first thing you need to do is stop watching the news. It is programming you, and it is keeping you in a constant state of fear. And when you're in fear, you rely on somebody to help you out, right? And who is that person? Well, it's the government. Now, listen, just so you know, I want to put this up front. I don't play the left-right paradigm because they are all at that level of government on the same team. The Trumps and the Clintons are all friends. The Bushes and the Obamas are all friends. So if you play the left and the right paradigm, that's fine. I am an anarchist at its purest form. Okay, some people think anarchist. This guy wants to run down the street with Molotov cocktails. No, negative, no. Anarchism is a political philosophy that is just wants all institutions of authority removed. All of it. No police, no IRS, none of it. Okay? The only law that we should observe is the law of God. And, this nation has programmed you to believe that Muslim people bad, right? Especially back in 9/11. Again, I'm not going to stray too far away. But many of those countries, they run their countries, from the Quran, from their Bible. Here in the United States, and again, I'm here in the United States. I understand this is an international podcast, but we champion things that are not biblical, right? Got that credit card with 20% interest on it. The Bible's very specific about usury, and we could go on and on and on with the LGBT stuff, and just we are not a nation of God. The people of this country are inherently good. Unfortunately, we trust everything that's on the television, everything that comes through the radio. Why is that? If somebody offered you a glass, a drink, said, "Here, drink this," and you said, "Well, what's in it?" "Oh, don't worry about it. Just drink it." That's what the government's doing it to you, and you're drinking it without questioning it. And to many of you folks, that comes in the form of the vaccines that people lined up for without question because they were told to be scared. So, again, question everything. And that's the reason we're doing a specific Flat Earth podcast, because so many folks in the in the truth community will not hear of the Flat Earth model. So that's fine. I will keep that part out of it, and we'll have our own Flat Earth community here, and we can discuss it civilly. Now, listen, if you're a troll, then I guess you've got a lot of time on your hands. And listen, we can all discuss the shapes. For me, I believe Antarctica surrounds the Earth, and it you can research. Antarctica is the highest point in the world, and it acts as an ice wall, and it contains the lake of the Earth right? The Atlantic, the Pacific, and, there's no cliff where the water runs off. We don't believe in the Flat Earth Society, who believes that the Earth is moving up constantly, like 8 feet a second or something, and that's what creates gravity. No, gravity is density and buoyancy. That's simply all it is. That's all gravity is. We're not on a ball. We're not spinning. The Earth is relatively flat, right? And God is looking down on us. The waters were separated. There's water above and water below. The Bible's very specific about the firmament. And we'll do a podcasting in the coming weeks that kind of, I believe, was the chain of events that led people, they found out about the firmament, and in the 50s, how they tried to break through. And when they realized that we were on a flat earth covered by a firmament, they had to do, the Stanley Kubrick film, The Moon Landing, so to keep people, right, because flat earth proves God. This thing where the sun is the center of the universe is just not the truth. And it's funny how they named all the planets after Greek gods. Same with the moon missions, right? Apollo, Venus, Mercury, so on and so forth. This world is the devil's playground. That's the term used for it. And you have to understand that you're being deceived every day, constantly. And they distract you with bread and circus, with your football and music and television and movies. And listen, we all need a breakaway, right? And there's nothing wrong with watching a game. But there is a problem when you know Brett Favre's 2014 stats, but you don't know what the 10th Amendment is, right? So the flat earth is very important, and it's not talked about enough. And it's one of those subjects that if you bring it up, you're ridiculed by everyone. Now, granted, the movement over the last 5 to 10 years has made significant progress, but on the mainstream, it's still demeaned, right? It's still looked down upon. But we have, especially as Christians, we have to have the courage to stand up and say, I'm sorry that you're laughing at me, but this is what I believe. This is what I believe. And I think it's time as Christians that we, actually stand up, put on the armor of God, and say what we believe in, even if it gets us canceled. That's why God put us here, to defend him and to find the truth. Because if you think the people running this country are on the level with you, but I've got a bridge to sell you and some oceanfront property in Oklahoma. Okay? So, again, we'll be, in future podcasts, we'll be talking about Copernicus. A lot of this stuff occurred during the Reformation in the early to mid 16th century. Here's this guy who formulated a model of the universe that placed the sun at its center instead of the earth. And then, of course, after the Rockefellers hijacked the education system in the early 1900s, that was pushed because, they're the bloodlines of the Illuminati, and they want you further and further away from God. That's why they came up with dinosaurs. That's why they came up with the Big Bang Theory. That's why they came up with evolution, and that's why they came up with heliocentrism. We'll be talking about Copernicus. We'll be talking about rivers that flow north. And it's perfectly possible on a globe for water to run uphill. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe, because he thought that the earth was motionless and fixed at the center, with the sun and stars moving around the earth while the planets revolved around the sun. Many people believed it was Johannes Kepler who poisoned him. Kepler took over Brahe's observatory and promoted the heliocentric model. What about Captain Cook? Sailing 60,000 miles around the outer ice wall of the Antarctic coastline, looking for an inlet through the massive glacier wall. It took him 3 years and 2 voyages to accomplish it. You'll hear about that. We'll break out some classic audio. You'll hear Admiral Byrd from 1928 to 1956 where he was making flights over the ice wall into Antarctica and he made many discoveries, but he had a tendency to talk a little too much. And on a TV show in the 50s, which we'll play, he admitted that beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, there's a continent which no human has set foot on. We'll talk about Operation High Jump. Why was it called Operation High Jump in the 40s? I think it was after World War II. And again, it starts with the German regime in the 30s, their operations in Antarctica, what they found out. We beat Germany. We took that technology. If you don't know, Antarctica is a no-go zone. There's a treaty between however many countries. You just can't get down there. You can pay $30,000, $40,000, and they'll put you on a boat and go down there, and there's a little ceremonious South Pole with a flag on it. You can see the penguins and go about your day. But they're not going to get you anywhere near the ice walls and the firmament for sure. And of course, Operation Deep Freeze, where there was a series of military bases that were built on outer islands that were in close proximity to the ice wall on the Antarctic landmass. Then there was Operation Fishbowl, Operation Dominic, which was when these missiles and rockets were sent up to try to blast a hole through the quote-unquote Van Allen belts. That was the firmament they were trying to get through. And these were highly charged areas that are, depending on who you talk to, who knows how many miles up that the firmament, which people believe are the Van Allen belts, or vice versa. They say the Van Allen belts, but it's the firmament. But with the flat Earth, Antarctica is the key. And again, 1959, you had the Antarctic Treaty. It was formulated. It's been signed by all countries. No corporation is allowed in Antarctica. And if you don't know, Admiral Byrd said there was an abundance of minerals in Antarctica. So why wouldn't they allow any corporations to go down there? Because there's to the evil people who run this earth, there's no amount of money that would justify giving people the knowledge of flat Earth. No private boat is allowed to go beyond the 60th parallel, which is about 5 degrees beyond Cape Horn, South Africa. Right? And if you want, in the truth community, we always say they tell you up front. If you look at the United Nations flag, that very much resembles the flat Earth, which we believe. And we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the Galileo affair. Let's try that one more time. The Galileo affair, which began around 1610. It culminated with the trial and condemnation of Galileo by the Roman Catholic Inquisition, 1633, and he was prosecuted for his support of heliocentrism because, again, Galileo said that the earth revolved around the sun. That is not what the Bible says. And we'll talk about Galileo Galilei. And then we'll be spending an awful lot of our time talking about NASA, which, of course, why would a logo have a serpent's tongue in its logo? Just doesn't make any sense. And we'll present to you all the lies from Apollo to Mercury to Gemini to Skylab and certainly to the International Space Station. Do rockets launch? Absolutely. You ever watch the trajectory of a rocket launch? Goes up and then curves down. And I will tell you the key to NASA is the Bermuda Triangle. That's the story they created to keep most ships out of that area because that is where they land the rockets after they're fired away. And people listening to the first time who don't support or laugh at the flat earth theory will say, how can you keep so many people in the loop, right? All the astronauts. It's compartmentalization. It's brainwashing. And there are other theories out there that may seem a little more far-fetched, but we're going to keep that for those particular episodes because I don't want to scare people off on episode 1. But NASA is a Ponzi scheme. They make somewhere around $70 million a day. And to produce science fiction. That's what they do. They produce science fiction. Did you know that, the picture on your iPhone, the original one of the Earth, that's a artist depiction. That is not a real picture of Earth. And that is supported. You can look that up. That's not some random conspiracy theory. That is a fact. We'll talk about the astronauts. We'll talk about James Webb's telescope and the Lucifer telescope in I think Arizona, right? And we'll certainly talk about James Webb as well, right? That's an interesting fellow right there. Why would anybody quit NASA just months before the Apollo mission? We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about Gus Grissom, who many people believe was killed. If you don't know, during the early Apollo missions, he hung a lemon on the shuttle, on the rocket. He said, how can we go to space if we can't even talk between buildings? Next day, he's killed in a fire. And then the gentleman who is investigating his death gets killed, him and his entire family. It's just a string of too many coincidences, folks, and not enough questions. So, again, just a quick recap. Why the lie? Well, we know the Bible says, in regards to a flat earth, a flat and stationary earth. And all the pictures of the earth from space are admittedly artist renditions, not real pictures. With the earth's curvature, we're able to see objects such as land, buildings, boats. We can see too far now that we have the technology like with the P900, P1000 cameras. We can see too far. NASA and Obama said that we can't leave low Earth orbit. So that completely disqualifies the Apollo missions. We never went to the moon. So, and think about this, folks. According to our history books, what is man's greatest accomplishment of all time? The moon landing. So if that is a lie, then everything else must be a lie. Again, the North Star never moves, and the constellations have never changed. If you remember, I interviewed Bart Sabrill, I think his name was. He's the guy who used to go around and go to the astronauts and hold a Bible out and say, would you swear that you landed on the moon? And none of the astronauts that supposedly landed on the moon would swear on the Bible. The water is always level and makes up, 2/3 of the earth, right? Level is always flat. Water is always flat. Water is always flat and level. It can't stick to a ball. The faster you spin a ball, the faster the water leaves the ball. Again, I'm asking you, if you're listening for the first time, if you heard a flat earth conversation and you're just taking the time and for some reason this podcast popped up, clear your mind of everything that you have ever learned. Okay? The education system is built to brainwash you, right? It programs you. It doesn't give you any critical thinking skills. In the public education system we have today, and I'm not trying to discredit any teachers we have today because they have certain things they have to teach in certain manners. However, this education system that they have built, compliments of the Rockefellers, are to memorize and regurgitate and pass that memorization on to the next person. We don't do a lot of critical thinking. We do multiple choice, true, false. Not enough critical thinking, not enough actually getting out and testing theories. Again, Operation Paperclip, something we will certainly cover, where we took Wernher von Braun, who was one of the guys who created the rockets that were raining on London. We brought him over. And if you look at his headstone, he passed in, I think, either the late 70s or the early 80s. Psalms 19:1, and it talks about the firmament. So why would a guy who was supposedly, one of the original fathers of NASA talk about the firmament? And the fact is, again, for the manyth time, the heliocentric model was created by Freemasons who serve Satan. When you look closely at the astronauts, you'll see air bubbles. That's because most of the space shuttle things are filmed under the water. And I will, in future, when we do NASA, I'll have links so you could click on it and see what I'm talking about. Again, it's density and buoyancy. There's no such thing as a magic gravity. They use GoPro and fisheye lenses to fake the curve of the Earth. Look at the sun rays. They come down in angles and not parallel. And why is moonlight always colder than moon shade? It's not a magic reflection of the sun. So many things to talk about, and we'll do them one thing at a time. And I'll play some audio for you. We'll play some clips from Admiral Byrd and some other folks. Tesla. I'm talking about Nicholas Tesla, not Elon Musk. The Bolivian salt flats, much, much more. Railroads, airplanes, right? Ask a pilot, do you constantly nose down your plane? No, you don't. There's a great book. I think it's 16 emergency landings that proves flat Earth. Go check that out. Much, much more to talk about. But I want to thank you guys, and I hope you stay with this podcast. I don't know if I do 1 or 2 a week. I like to play classic audio, and that's probably the first thing I'll drop is an interview with Admiral Byrd. Keep an open mind. Question everything. If the last couple years haven't taught you to distrust the people who run the show, I can't really help you. But I hope you keep an open mind and have the courage to go on this journey with us. We're going to wrap episode 1 up, Why the Lie, with Bush and Obama mocking Flat Earth. And again, we are not a part of the Flat Earth Society. We don't believe that we're on a circle thing that's shooting straight up in the air 8 miles an hour or whatever it is. It's just not. It's flat, it's fixed, and it's stationary. And we'll talk more about that in episode number 2. And we're going to go out again with George H.W. Bush and Barack Obama mocking Flat Earth. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We appreciate you.
Ends at the water's edge. Well, thank God they weren't around back in 1492. Imagine the hard time they've given Christopher Columbus. Voices on the right and left are working right now to breathe life into those old flat earth theories of protectionism, of isolationism, that there is no going back. Our new world is far smaller, communications far more instant, our horizons stretch much farther with each generation. This is 1991, not 1791. Horse and buggy attitude won't carry us into the next century. And we will knock down barriers wherever we find them, to open markets, for instance, for our computer software, movies, books, and pharmaceuticals. We will fight hard against protectionism, both at home and abroad. And 5 centuries ago, a man of courage and vision set sail from Europe, searching for new trade routes and opportunities. And he defied the timid counsel of those who said the earth was flat. Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas transformed human history. Columbus was an entrepreneur, and the risk he took 500 years ago continues to pay off abundantly today. And today we still have to combat the flat earth mentality, the mindset that urges us to barricade our borders against competition, to shut off the free exchange of food and machinery and skills and ideas.
I want to be clear. I am willing to work with anybody. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Greens, anybody to combat this threat on behalf of our kids. I am open to all sorts of new ideas, maybe better ideas, to make sure that we deal with climate change in a way that promotes jobs and growth. Nobody has a monopoly on what is a very hard problem, but I don't have much patience for anyone who denies that this challenge is real. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society.
If I say that the world is round and someone else says it's flat, that's worth reporting. But you might also want to report on a bunch of scientific evidence that seems to support the notion that the world is round.
We're trying to move towards the future. They want to be stuck in the past. And we've heard this kind of thinking before. Let me tell you something. If some of these folks were around when Columbus set sail, they must have been founding members of the Flat Earth Society. They would not have believed that the world was round.
As easy as you breathe, and I can feel a little piece of my soul dying, but keeping it all underneath. Feel like an April's fool, even though it's mid-July. I'm gonna see you break that cool before you ever see me cry. 'Cause I got the tricks figured out. Feelings are as as a lie with a heart of truth, a lie with a heart of truth. Few things are as powerful as a lie with a heart of truth, a lie with a heart of truth. Poison is yet beautiful, a lie with a heart of truth, a lie with a heart of truth. Is not a four-letter word. Dude, you should check your spelling. Somehow you get your lines so blurred, and I ain't buying what you're selling. Not since I figured out that few things are as powerful as a lie with a heart of truth, a lie with a heart of truth. No few things are as powerful as a lie with a heart of truth, a lie with a heart of truth. Poison
know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.